Good morning, everyone. Namo Buddhaya. And a warm welcome to our special event today. We are delighted to have you join us for the 100th Dhamma talk presented by Dhamma USA today. We celebrate a remarkable milestone in our journey in sharing the teachings of the Buddha and fostering a community dedicated to mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. I'm honored to host this momentous occasion on behalf of Dhamma USA. Over the past years, Dhamma USA has been committed to offering insightful and transformative Dhamma talks, guided by venerable monks and nuns from various traditions of Buddhism. Our mission is to provide spiritual care, support, and education to individuals seeking a deeper understanding of the Dhamma. Today, we gather not only to commemorate our 100th Dhamma talk, but also to reflect on the journey we have undertaken together. From the very first talk to this landmark event, I remember Venerable Vatagoda Maggavihara is the one who started this journey. And along with that, we met so many monks and nuns all throughout from different countries in the world. So we have explored numerous facets of the Buddha's teachings, delving into topics such as mindfulness, compassion, ethical living, and the nature of suffering. Each talk has been a step forward towards awakening, offering us the tools to cultivate inner peace and wisdom. As we begin today's talk, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed teachers, devoted participants, and the entire Dhamma USA community. We had a number of people hosting these events so far. So your unwavering support and dedication have made this milestone possible. We extend a special thank to all our supporters and volunteers whose efforts have been instrumental in making these Dhamma talks success. So today's Dhamma talk will be delivered by our esteemed Dr. Bhante Kusala, who has been a guiding light and source of profound wisdom for many. Bhante Kusala is a distinguished Buddhist monk with an impressive academic and spiritual background. Ordained at the age of 16 in 2004 within the Sri Lankan Theravada tradition, Bhante Kusala has since dedicated his life to spiritual practice and education. Bhante Kusala's academic achievements include a PhD from the University of Jayawardenepura, a Master of Divinity from Harvard University, a Master of Arts from the University of Kelaniya, a Master of Philosophy from the University of Peradeniya, and the esteemed title of Royal Pandit, recognized what we call Rajkiya Pandita, recognizing his scholarly contributions. He is one of the co-founders and a resident monk at the Cambridge Peace House and has served as an interfaith chaplain in various U.S. hospitals and hospice settings. Beyond his academic and professional accomplishments, Bhante Kosala is passionate about writing and poetry. This is something very interesting about him. He's translating Buddhist texts, meditation, and providing compassionate spiritual counseling His dedication to his spiritual path and extensive achievements make him a remarkable figure in the Buddhist community and beyond. Before we begin, let us take a moment to center ourselves. Please close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and allow your mind to settle into the present moment. Thank you. So, as we embark this journey together, we may open our hearts and minds to the teachings we are about to receive. Without further ado, it's my honor to introduce you to Bhante Kusala. Welcome to our Dhamma session, Venerable Dr. Um, Kusala. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bhante. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Perfect. So that was very kind of you to have all those details for this introduction. Apparently, you have done some research and digging. And congratulations on doing this series up until now, that this is the 100th event of
yes.
hosting, and that is amazing. A very remarkable achievement there itself. Compared to all those other things that you read, I think this is the greatest achievement of all. So today, when I discussed with Bante since well, couple of months back about um, this program, I think we came up with the topic of what the Buddha did,
Hmm.
and I'm sure some of you must have heard of the book by Venerable Valpola Rahula, What the Buddha Taught,
Yes.
and compared to that, what made the Buddha the Buddha. That is what I had in mind.
Hmm.
And for us to understand what made him the Buddha, we can look into some of the suttas, such as the one that we will be discussing today. That is Mahā Saccaka Sutta. This is from Majjhima Nikaya. That means middle length discourses. And we find this sutta as number 36. And you can combine this sutta with number 26 as well. That is the Arya Pariyesana Sutta, the Noble Search. After that, you can also go to the Dhamma Cakkappavattana Sutta, the first sermon of the Buddha, to understand how he completed his teaching, how he started his teaching career. So, with that in mind, let us begin with the Mahā Saccaka Sutta. So, Maha means greater, Saccaka is the person who was subjected to this discussion. At that point, the Buddha happened to be in Vesali, and the Buddha was getting ready to go for his alms round. And Saccaka, who is from the Niganta's tradition, Niganta is a tradition that existed at the time of the Buddha and still is flourishing in India. And if you travel to India, you will see Niganta monks. Niganta means uh, no clothes. So they have two branches, Svetambara and Digambara. Svetambara branch wears white clothes, and Digambara branch refuses even wearing clothes, as far as I understand. And one of them, the Saccaka, who is a debater, who is well known at the time, came toward where the Buddha happened to be. He was apparently exercising, and he when Venerable Ananda saw him approaching from a distance, Venerable Ananda told uh, Buddha to engage in a conversation with Saccaka. And when Saccaka approached the Buddha, he asked a very interesting question. He said, there are some recluses and Brahmins who abide pursuing development of body. So what is the development of body here? We will discuss, but not development of mind. So he then asks, they are touched by bodily painful feeling. In the past, when one was touched by bodily painful feeling, one's thighs would become rigid, one's heart would burst, hot blood would gush from one's mouth, and one would go mad, go out of one's mind. So then the mind was subservient of the body, to the body wielded mastery over it. Why is that? This was an excellent question, and the Buddha gives an excellent answer. So, development of the body comes from various ways, and some of the ways they pursued this development was through cutting down food. And the Buddha's observation as he went through this practice himself was that some of the recluses and Brahmins, when they have done cutting down food to a certain extent, they only takes a little food at a time, and eventually they come back to taking food lavishly. This is what the Buddha observed. And that means what they earlier abandoned, they later ceased again. They did not continue their practice. And also you can hear, you can sense with the right understanding now that they did not have the right understanding, that they did not have the right view to begin with. They thought cutting down food will be the way to understand suffering and overcome suffering. However, what happened to them was that because they did not develop their mind, they later had to give up their practices and they went mad. So there was a disharmony between the body and mind. That is what we observe here. Well, and then Saccaka gives examples of Nandavacha, Kisa Sankicha, Makkali Gosala, and these are the examples. They go naked and uh, they refuse the conventional ways of receiving food and instead they choose licking their hands, not coming when asked, not stopping when asked. So that means somebody asked them to come forward to receive food and they don't come. That is a practice they did. Also, not stopping when asked. When somebody comes behind and asks them to stop to receive food, they don't stop. They don't accept food brought or food especially made or an invitation to a meal. These are very rigorous ways to refuse eating a meal. They receive nothing from a pot, from a bowl, across a threshold, across a stick, across a pestle, from two eating together, from a pregnant woman. So they have found all kinds of ways to refuse receiving food. And they keep to one house, and that means when they go to one house, they don't receive any food. That is it. They don't go any further. That means they are not eating that day. And then two houses. And if they have not received any food, they don't go any further. They just refuse to eat for that day. And if this happens continuously, that they don't receive any food, that is it, and they tolerate it. And the Buddha's question was, but do they subsist on so little? Saccaka. No, Venerable Gautama, sometimes they consume excellent hard food, eat excellent soft food, taste excellent delicates, drink excellent drinks. Thereby they again regain their strength, fortify themselves, and become fat. So this was an observation they both shared commonly. That means the Buddha had observed it, and Saccaka also had observed this behavior. And the comment from the Buddha here is that what they earlier abandoned, they later gather together again. That is how there is increase and decrease of this body. But what have you learned about development of mind? The Buddha asks an interesting question here. And Saccaka was unable to answer this question. Apparently, he didn't know anything about or had not learned anything about development of the mind. And the Buddha then responded, what you have just spoken of as development of body is not development of body according to the noble ones, Dhamma and discipline, Dhamma Vinaya. Since you do not know what development of body is, how could you know the development of mind? So this sets the stage for the Buddha to discuss about both the development of the body and the development of the mind. However, he explains what he went through to learn this. He did his own research and then he discovered the truth and revealed it to the world. So, what the Buddha did comes from this kind of setting. And we are grateful to Saccaka for approaching the Buddha and asking these questions, and then later Venerable Ananda for revealing these teachings to the world and eventually to all the monks in the past who carried this Dhamma forward so that we can now unpack and learn from these teachings. So the Buddha had goals here. This was about pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings. He had a misunderstanding in the beginning that all pleasant feelings were bad, including the jhanic pleasant feelings. So he tried to suppress all the pleasant feelings. And you will see how he did that. Here, pleasant feeling arise in an untaught ordinary person. So, untaught ordinary person is Asudava Putujjano, someone who had not learned the teachings before. Touched by that pleasant feeling, he lusts after pleasure and continues to lust after pleasure. This is a person, in simple terms, who will say when he sees something pleasant, say they are infatuated with a woman, they continue to look for the sight of this woman. That is what they do. That um, touched by that pleasant feeling, he lusts after and continues to lust after that pleasure. That pleasant feeling of his ceases. That means that pleasant feeling is impermanent. It no longer can continue to exist. With the cessation of that pleasant feeling, what comes up could be a painful feeling that he no longer has access to this woman. He is painful. He is longing. Touched by that painful feeling, he sorrows, grieves, and laments, and weeps, beating his breast and becomes distraught. That is what happens. When that pleasant feeling has arisen in him, it invades his mind and remains because body is not developed. So the hint here is that he needs to develop his body. How do we develop the body? The Buddha discovers that in order to develop the body, there is body restraint, that is sila. Restrainment from the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. That is how the restrained development of the body takes place. So, anyone who's dealing with pleasant and unpleasant feelings, if they have not developed their body or restrained their faculties, they have not learned the way to mastery over pleasant and unpleasant feelings. So that person is both undeveloped in the body and undeveloped in the mind. So that is the basic idea about pleasant and unpleasant feelings. But then uh, Saccaka says, I believe that you really know both the development of the body and development of the mind. This is something that is told with derogatory mind. And the Buddha says, your words are offensive and discourteous, but still I will answer you. Since I shaved off my hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, and went forth from the home life into homelessness, it has not been possible for a rising pleasant feeling to invade my mind and remain, or for a rising painful feeling to invade my mind and remain. Now we get an idea about the mind of the Buddha. We are reading the mind of the Buddha here. That means when he renounced, after his great renunciation, Abhinishpramana, he had abandoned, uh, he knew the pleasant and painful feelings, but he was not indulging in them. In both the pleasant feelings, when he felt sensual feelings, he did not indulge in them. And about toward the painful feelings, he also did not allow, he went through any hardship and he was okay with them. He did not let his mind seize into or completely grab into that painful feeling and be controlled by it. So, whether it was hunger or walking barefoot or the extreme heat of the Indian sun, he tolerated them. He did not let those unpleasant feelings invade. Or when pleasant feelings such as wanting food or wanting comfort, wanting a house over him, or anything whatsoever that is pleasant, he did not, whenever he had thoughts and ideas about them, he did not indulge in those ideas. And then the question arises. This is a great question, and Saccaka is now curious. Has there never arisen in Venerable Gautama a feeling so pleasant that it could invade his mind and remain? Has there never arisen a painful feeling that it could invade his mind and remain? And this is a great question. And the Buddha responds, why not Agivesana? So this is about the meditation experiences he had. Before my enlightenment, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is someone who is aspiring to be enlightened, to receive bodhi, to be awakened. I thought, household life is crowded and dusty. Life gone forth is wide open. It is not easy while living in a home to lead the holy life, utterly perfect and pure as a polished shell. She is considering becoming ordained. How he's seeing. This is a statement that is recited by anyone who is ordained. Nowadays, they think household life is crowded and dusty. Life gone forth is wide open, and it is not easy while living at home to conduct a spiritual life that is pure. And then he decides, suppose I shave off my hair and beard. Why? That way, he's no longer recognized as a layperson. He's now a monastic that has come down to simplicity, a different form of existence. Hair and beard is makers of beauty. People love to touch their hair, people love to touch the beard and make decorations and color and do all kinds of patterns and stuff. But he abandoned this. Put on the yellow robe, the saffron robe. See, because he has seen a monk before and he has seen many monks afterwards, and he decides to come down to that simplicity where he does not own anything, basically. And he went forth from the home life into homelessness. That means he no longer has a permanent abiding. He can sleep under a tree, he can camp anywhere, he will be fine. That he no longer has those comforts anymore. So, this is how he experienced pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings. Later, while still young, a black haired young man endowed with the blessing of youth in the prime of life. And uh, so uh, he then explains striving, his striving part. Uh, so he's showing us some examples here, and having told his life as a monk um, was not something that he sincerely refused, or he completely delved into his mind, and he went through rigorous training. So for us to understand his rigorous training, we need to see his self-mortification practices. Suppose with my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, I beat down, constrain, and crush mind with mind. Suppose my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, I beat down, constrain, and crush mind with mind. While I did so, sweat ran from my armpits, just as a strong man might seize a weaker man by the head or shoulders and beat him down, constrain him, and crush him. So too with my teeth clenched and my tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth. I beat down, constrained, and crushed mind with mind, and sweat ran from my armpits. But although tireless energy was aroused in me, and unremitting mindfulness was established, my body was overwrought and uncalm. Body was uncalm because I was exhausted by the painful striving. But such painful feeling that arose in me did not invade my mind and remain. So now he's showing the self mortification, the beginning of his self mortification practice, especially when he was misguided by others at the time, that giving self mortification many sufferings to his body, he would be able to overcome suffering, ultimately know the truth about suffering. And he's showing how his body was invaded by these painful feelings. That means his body was overwrought and uncalm. His body needed to be calm, and that was not happening. And then he says, suppose I practice the breathingless meditation. So I stopped in breath and out breath through my mouth and nose. While I did so, there was a loud sound of winds coming out of my ear holes. Just as there is a loud sound when a smith's bellows are blown, so too, while I stopped the in breath and out breath through my nose and ears, there was a loud sound of winds coming out from my ear holes. But although tireless energy was aroused in me and unremitting mindfulness was established, my body was overwrought and uncalm because I was exhausted by the painful striving. So, this is simply showing him that painful striving is not the way. Yet again, such painful feeling that arose in me did not invade my mind and remain. So that means he let his body go through this suffering because his mind was in a state where he could tolerate such painful feeling. Suppose I practice further the breathingless meditation. So the Buddha stopped the Buddha to be stopped in breaths and out breaths through his mouth, nose, and ears. You can, when you stop breathing from your mouth, you can breathe from your nose and ears. While then he stopped, all these ways he can breathe. Like, the body will try to breathe through his ears because lifespan still continues. He's alive. While I did so, violent winds cut through my head, just as if a strong man were to crush my head with the tip of a sharp sword. Like excruciating pain arises, just like a sword is piercing through his head. Violent winds cut through my head, but his mind remained unaffected. Suppose I practice further the breathingless meditation. So I stopped the in breaths and out breaths through my mouth, nose, and ears. While I did so, there were violent pains in my head. I was exhausted by that painful striving, but my mind remained unaffected. Suppose I practice further the breathingless meditation. So I stopped the in breaths and out breaths through my mouth, nose, and ears. Violent winds carved up my belly, sharp like an ox's belly being cut by a sharp butcher's knife. So his belly was now being affected, but his mind remained calm. Suppose I practiced further the breathingless meditation. So I stopped the in breaths and out breaths through my mouth, nose, and ears. There was a violent burning in my body. His body was exhausted, mind remained unaffected. So now deities saw me, and they said, the recluse Gautama is dead. How did they say, what made them say that? So he stopped the in breaths and out breaths, and there was burning in his body, and he was perhaps just collapsed. He just had no energy. The breath is energy. He had no energy. So the deities declared the recluse Gautama, he is still a recluse. He's not the Buddha yet. He is a Shramana. He must be dead, the deities said. See, he is able to sense the presence of the deities. His body is completely emaciated, that he had no energy whatsoever. But his mind is very strong here, and you will learn his response from his response here. Some deities said recluse Gautama is not dead, he is dying. And others said he is an arahant. So that is the way arahants abide. So that was the misunderstanding at the time, that someone who had cut down so much food and also stopped breathing will be regarded as an arahant, someone who has come to the purity. But in the Buddha's mind, he knew that his mind still needed to be developed. Then he thought, suppose I practice entirely cutting off food. So he abandoned breathing less meditation, and then now comes to cutting off food, because he was until that point he was eating while he was practicing the breathingless meditation to gain the energy. But now he's cutting off food. Then deities came to the Buddha and said, do not practice entirely cutting off food. If you do so, we will infuse heavenly food through the pores of your skin. And at this point, I dismissed those deities. There is no need, he said. Saying there is no need to infuse heavenly food, he refused. And here we don't see, according to as the tradition is holding the idea that he practiced self mortification for 6 years, what they are doing is that from the age of 29 up until his awakening at 35, there is 6 years. In all through and through, what we are noticing is that earlier, what is not mentioned here is mentioned um, in Arya Pariyesana Sutta, that is Majjhima Nikaya number 26, that he went to Alara Kalama and Uddakarama Putta. That is not that is not about self-mortification. So it was toward the end of those years that he did self-mortification practice. With Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, he learned certain attainments and he abided in there, and his mind still deteriorated to the, because he had not completely abandoned those defilements yet. He saw the danger of those states, that he could decline even after developing such states. So he abandoned those practices and now he's trying to develop the body. And then he starts taking little food. So whether bean soup or lentil soup or veg soup or pea soup, he took very little food, handful each time, whether of bean soup or any kind of soup he was given. Because of eating so little, his limbs became like the jointed segments of vine stems or bamboo stems. Because of eating so little, his backside became like a camel's hoof. Because of eating so little, the projections on his spine stood forth like corded beads. Because of eating so little, his ribs jutted out as gaunt as the crazy rafters of an old roofed barn. Because of eating so little, the gleam of his eyes sank far down in their sockets, looking like the gleam of water that has sunk far down in a deep well. Because of eating so little, his scalp shriveled and withered as a green bitter gourd shrivels and withers in the wind and sun. Because of eating so little, his belly skin adhered to the backbone, and if he touched his backbone, he encountered the belly skin. If he defecated or urinated, he fell over his face there. If he tried to ease his body by rubbing limbs with his hands, his hair rotted at its roots, fell off from his body as he rubbed. Now people started telling, he must be black, and others said, he is not black, he is brown, and others said, he is neither black nor brown, he is golden skinned. So much had the clear, bright color of his skin deteriorated through eating so little. You can see someone coming, we are reading between the lines here that coming from Nepali region, he had a clear, bright skin. The Himalayan region, most people have a clear skin, and especially someone who came from a royal background may have had some very good skin, but now that skin is gone. And this is then he decided whatever recluses or Brahmins in the past have experienced painful, racking, piercing feeling due to exertion, this is the utmost. There is none beyond this. This is his self-realization begins here. Whatever recluses and Brahmins in the future will experience painful, racking, piercing feeling due to exertion, self-mortification, this is the utmost. There is none beyond this, and whatever recluse and Brahmins at present experience painful, racking, piercing feeling due to exertion, this is the utmost. There is none beyond this. But by this racking practice of austerities, I have not attained any superhuman state, any distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. Could there be another path to enlightenment. Then he recalled his experience as a child when his father, the Sakyan, was occupied at the field while he was sitting in the cool shade of a rose apple tree, quite secluded from sensual pleasures. That means indulging in seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, physical sensations, and thinking. He was secluded from those. In simple terms, he abandoned five hindrances as a child, secluded from unwholesome states, not indulging in any unwholesome hindrance or any state where his mind gets to impurity. He entered upon and abided in the first jhana. Jhana is a achievement through meditation. This achievement he he got there through abandoning hindrances. So at any point your mind is free from hindrances, you are touching a jhana level. At any point you have abandoned unwholesome states, you are touching a base of a jhana level, especially with the focus of meditation, if you have abandoned those states. And his mind uh, was focused. His mind applied and sustained thoughts. So, applied and sustained thought here was that the thoughts of there are three kinds of thoughts that a recluse abandons. Karma thoughts, a child would not have any of those. So he abandoned the thoughts of sensuality, of course, and thoughts of cruelty. He instead directed his mind toward compassion. This is the child, and also loving kindness, thoughts of loving kindness. So these are thoughts that pave the way toward jhana. And applying your mind to that, and then sustaining this kind of mindset. Okay, uh, Kama Vitakka, and then Vihinsa Vitakka and Avyapada. So Nekama Vitakka, Avihinsa Vitakka, and Avyapada Vitakka. So Avyapada is here non-anger, that means loving kindness. Hinsa is cruelty, Vihinsa is non-cruelty, that is compassion. And then Kama is sensuality and Nekama is non-sensuality. These are right thoughts to have. This is the second aspect of the Eightfold Path, Samma Sankappa, very crucial. But for that, we need to have the right understanding. Earlier, the Buddha to be had wrong understanding. That is why he placed right understanding in the very beginning of the Eightfold Path. Do not be misguided by those folks who say that self mortification or indulgence in luxury will lead to awakening. So, abandoning those, now he is maintaining his thoughts the in this way, right thoughts with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. You see, secluded, so the mind secluded from unwholesome states and hindrances. So rapture and pleasure is born naturally in that kind of resting mind, piti and sukha. And then he realized, could that be the path to enlightenment? So then, following in that memory, came the realization that is indeed the path to enlightenment. And then he realized this important realization. Why am I afraid of that pleasure that has nothing to do with sensual pleasures? The jhana pleasures has nothing to do with sensual pleasures and nothing to do with unwholesome states, because his mind is in a wholesome state with loving kindness, with compassion, right? With letting go. So he thought, I'm not afraid of that pleasure since it has nothing to do with sensual pleasures and unwholesome states. So he started eating little and then he regained his physical strength and then he developed the jhanas and then he realized the dependent origination, and then he realized what needs the Four Noble Truths and revealed it to the world. And that revelation is found in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. The the this is called the sermon or the first sermon, the turning of the wheel of Dhamma, and that you can discover in the first sermon in the Samyutta Nikaya. So all of that is what he realized, and so he simply gained true knowledge and revealed it to the world. That is what made the Buddha the Buddha. I believe that is enough for this morning, and if you need clarifications, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to explain.
Thank you so much, Venerable Kusala. So this wonderful Dhamma talk in the evening, and also this sutta is really an interesting explanation, right, about the Buddha's early um, path, and how he was also practicing, and also like how he was reacting to Saccaka.
Yeah,
That's really an interesting part. I remember you mentioned about the teeth clenching thing.
yeah.
Also, I think it's there in the um, uh,
Vitakka Santan?
Vidakasantanu Sutta. Yes, yes,
Right, right.
right. So I also would like to invite our friends who join us today to post any questions if you have. Let me quickly remind some of the people who join us. Um, Subhadrangi Pujari, Maria, Madhu Gangani, Manal Vyas, Jayanta Fernando, and Guda Sachin. And yes, so this sutta of Majjhima Nikaya, um, Mahā Saccaka Sutta, I think can be very helpful to many people, right? All of us. Like the sutta talks about the ascetic practices and realization, and also how he changed from that path of finances to middle path, and then how he actually developed um, his jhanas, and then eventually his attaining of enlightenment, and even how he was dealing with those people who were criticizing. um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's a really interesting point. So, in today's context, what do you think? How we can use this sutta to greater benefit of our practice?
Well, I think what we sense here is that the Buddha was fearless. He was very direct, even knowing that Saccaka and his tradition were his rivals. He was strongly established in his own place, and he did not hesitate to say, "You are presumptuous," when it was sensed that um, when Saccaka said, "You must know development of body, development mind," the Buddha said, "You are just saying something you don't know. Just wait until I explain." So that's one thing that we observe, and in his explanation of the jhanas, although we did not make the jhanas the highlight today, he's showing how simple the teaching is, the sandittika quality that Dhamma is immediately effective, and that effectiveness is experienced at the moment in today's life when anyone is sincerely willing to abandon the five hindrances. What are the five hindrances? Always someone may dwell with the thoughts of sensuality days on end with the thought of sensuality. And that person, the moment they abandon these, at least for a period of 1 week, their mind is at a very peaceful place. And thoughts of anger, abandoning them, knowing the truth about anger, that it only suppresses you and it is adding to mental impurities, abandoning them in your day to day life and choosing instead loving kindness toward oneself. It is because you have loving kindness toward oneself that you abandon anger from your heart. And that way, Dhamma is immediately effective. You are simply preparing the ground for you to experience the jhanas, the bliss that a jhana can give you. And restlessness can be abandoned. Sloth and torpor, always wanting to sleep or because of overeating or eating less or being tired due to various reasons. Sitting in a chair. Some people tend to sit in front of a computer gaming, and that tiredness can lead to some kind of sleepiness. Abandoning that tendency. So basically, life-changing decisions here are all rooted in the five hindrances. And then doubting that this Dhamma can be beneficial to you, doubting that the teaching given by the Buddha and the Buddha himself can be misleading. That kind of thoughts can be abandoned, doubting. And having abandoned them in this very life, here and now, within a couple of days, one is able to achieve a very peaceful state of their mind, and you can label it as the first jhana. And it is like mind is opening like a lotus. Outer layers are the hindrances that are still dirty. But when this lotus opens with the with the light of wisdom, inner layers are beautiful, fragranceful, and more delicate. Allow that to happen and let go of those outer layers and allow them to open and be on the side so that the mind's beauty is revealed to you beautifully. And that is Dhamma. And also notice, remember that this kind of jhanic pleasure is totally a meditation pleasure and it has been approved by the Buddha for you to experience. And there's nothing to fear in there because those meditative experiences has nothing to do with worldly pursuits, worldly pleasures. I believe that is one way that we can apply this experience of the Buddha himself into our own lives and experience the immediately effective, timeless Dhamma in our own lives, right here, right now. Thank you, Bhante, for that question.
That's really wonderful. I think something to very similar to this question also. What lessons can modern practitioners draw from the Buddha's experiences and insights as described in this sutta?
So, also here, what we notice is that we do our own research. So, he did his own research. He went to the field
Hmm.
and he did what had to be done.
Hmm.
So, that is one thing that he did. And also, he remembered his failures and he admitted them. He had no shame revealing. He could have just explained his experiences with Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, the meditation only. But look what he did. And he also discovered through his own efforts and experiences that these practices weren't helping him. That is also a great learning. And again, there are many teachers who say this and that. But until you practice yourself, you are not going to get the benefit of anything those teachers are saying. You can listen to many teachers, many different ones nowadays through internet. And I think people are perhaps stuck through listening only. They listen Dhamma talks while driving. They listen to Dhamma talks while they are cooking. They listen to a talk to go to bed, and that is kind of the wrong way to practice the Dhamma. There is no practice there. You are only listening and forgetting, listening and forgetting. There is no removal of hindrances. There is no understanding of what is applied and sustained thought. There is no development of whatsoever of your mind and body, no restrainment of the body. So that is what we need. Nowadays, with the access of YouTube, which is a great platform, but people do take YouTube as a flavorful cake where you try to eat this flavor today, that flavor tomorrow, and many monks, very creatively express Dhamma, but they can't make you practice. It is up to us to really come to the precepts with the seal as foundation, seeing how to build, how to develop the loving kindness, how to develop compassion, how to develop unconditional joy, how to develop equanimity. Can we taste the Dhamma with the practice and establish ourselves in the practice that way and keep a consistent practice, not 10 minutes, as long as you can sit. How much do you eat? As much as you can, and basically you eat until you feel fulfilled. So, how much meditation you need? Until you feel fulfilled, that you have done enough meditation. Same like eating food. So, with an awareness to eating food, you eat moderately. With an awareness to meditation, you just practice just enough, not setting a 10 minutes limit to it. Sitting an hour, sitting 2 hours. They say if you are not a busy person, you meditate 1 hour a day. If you are a busy person, you must meditate 2 hours a day, because busy person needs 2 hours of meditation. There is so much busyness that is consuming their mental energy. They need a lot of meditation. Otherwise, their busyness is slowly going to kill them. Okay?
That definitely is very true. Like a lot of people make it a habit to listen to Dhamma, which is a good thing. Like listening to Dhamma is a really good thing. And also maybe the other two steps, for example, Sunata, Dhareta, Charata, we have three steps, right?
Yeah.
Listening to Dhamma is great, but then also Dhareta, which is learning, also remembering, learning by heart, maybe taking some notes. What really was this Dhamma talk about? So probably when you cook, maybe you can have a notice board where you can write some important names and points, which could be a good idea. But I'm sure, like while driving, you probably can do all these things, but still, like at least to feel you calm, which is a good thing. If you have a long distance driving, listening to a Dhamma talk, like hour long Dhamma talk, is a great thing to maintain your peace. But having said that, yes, the most important thing is charata dhamme, like practicing in day-to-day life, right? That
Yeah.
will be a great thing. Yes, as Venerable Kusala mentioned, how important it is to practice. That should be the key to our success in the path. I do have a question here from Gudas Sachin. He asks, Bante, can you explain difference between setting up of determination and intention?
So determination could be something like aditthana, which is really, when developed very good, it becomes a paramita, fulfillment. But it begins by simple practices, like uh, before you go to bed, you make a determination to wake up at 4 in the morning, or 4:01 in the morning, or 4:03 in the morning, 4:05 in the morning. And you just go to bed and see if your determination is working. You have to have some interest in developing this practice. If you are not interested in that practice, this is not going to work. So this works also for people who develop jhanas. Jhana practitioners, when they are mastering jhanas, they can also say, I will remain in the first jhana, in this state of mind, for 3 hours, and they do so, or 3 minutes, and they do so. They are able to do that with the mastery of the jhanas. Intention is slightly different. Intention is intending to do something, and that is karma, your intention. You intend to express this something, and then you express it, and there's also your mind getting involved in it, and the karmic energy is now produced. So intention is slightly different from determination there. And they are both my mental products. One is sustained, and intention is somewhat it's not a constant, it may change. And so intention, intentions can be good or bad, and determinations also can be good or bad. Uh, there are good intentions, there are bad intentions, and intending to look after your parents can be a good intention that produces good, wholesome energy around you. Intention of practicing loving kindness can be very good in every difficult situation. Instead of choosing to express annoyance and wanting to correct others, asking, why did you shut the door so loudly? You can instead radiate loving kindness toward that person. Why did you slam the door? It's, energy consuming. Instead, can you just quietly radiate loving kindness and not get into arguments? So this takes right intention. I believe that explains it.
Yeah, I think that's also very important. Like as you mentioned before, practicing meditation. If you are too busy, you need to practice more because you really drain your energy so much. The people who really feel like anxious, so they have depression, they have too much to do, too little time, and they get angry easily. This means you need to meditate more. Because your inner peace is something that you really put in danger when you do all those things. Yeah, that's really, really important fact. Yeah, so meditation, as you also encourage a lot of people to meditate, I think this fact will be very helpful, especially here. Make a determination, and make your intentions clear that I need to meditate, I need to schedule, I need to register in my system every single day, I need to practice. That way, whenever this every one of us, like when you keep it a habit, our system demands this is my meditation time, right? Like you go to the gym,
Yeah,
like you schedule. So same thing, when you meditate continuously,
yeah,
your mind reminds you this is meditation time.
yeah,
You like to actually say something about that?
absolutely. So when we are hungry, especially for those monks who are used to eating a breakfast and then a lunch, our body knows there is a body clock. And also with the meditation, those monks who have been practicing meditation for a long time, when they have a specific time for a sitting practice, there is automatically your mind looking forward to it. If you are not in this place, you may not know that this could happen. I think it takes a long period of time, um, but it's there. Not years actually. Within less than a year, you can see the life changing um, effect of the meditation daily. Say you are used to sitting at 7 in the morning or 9 in the morning. You get up And of course, most people struggle with waking up and getting up. They wake up, but they don't get up from their body, from their bed. They don't get the body moving. So if they have the strongest determination to keep a consistent practice, they can then wash themselves, do stretching, and then wash themselves, drink their water, staying hydrated, and then their body is now ready to. If they want to have breakfast, they can do that too. Take a light breakfast and then do a good sitting, so you are not affected by hunger. If you have stayed hungry overnight, then it's wise to take some breakfast and then do a good sitting practice, very solid sitting practice in a chair, if that is comfortable for you, or in a seated position, if that is comfortable for you. So that definitely is a thing. And take mind as something like your hand. When something is tied to your hand, there is suffering. And the mind is a similar organ. It takes time to heal, and allow the mind to heal and remove these painful bandages or wrappings, or uh, stuff that you have tied your mind to, and loosening them and eventually letting the mind be relaxed daily will be such a gift you give to yourself. And you will see slowly that you are becoming a very different person from the person you used to be. There will be so much insight, so much wisdom, and so much non-reaction in you that you will be amazed how a different person you have evolved to be. And this will be someone you start to like, that you start to like yourself more than anybody else. That is really a way to love the world. When you love yourself, you know how to love the world. Through meditation, it all happens through development of the mind and body. So body development also naturally happens. Eventually, your sleep patterns get corrected, and your food habits get corrected, and you become more aware of your daily influxes of the mind, and you become a master who can overcome these on your own without needing too many YouTube Dhamma talks.
Right. Very good. That's right. Like, I think knowing a little bit and practicing more
Yeah,
can be even more helpful. Like having too much information
yeah,
maybe can be a little more distracting. So,
yeah,
in the sutta, also, the Buddha actually explains about his own personal narrative in Mahā Saccaka Sutta, right?
yeah.
And how he experimented. He went to the best of the masters those days, and then he eventually found, yeah, this is not going to help him. This is not the right way. So he came out of that, and he had his own middle path. So, how does the Buddha's personal narrative in the Mahasaccaka Sutta serve as an instructional tool for his followers? Would you like to explain a little bit?
So this is again, this is why when he went to the five ascetics and said, abandon the self-mortification, atta kilamata yoga. So kilamata is a word that is very interesting here. Kilamata is like tiring your body. And when your body is tired, how can you have any good good understanding? And that is one of the greatest lessons that he taught to the world, starting from the five ascetics who earlier were supporting him to tiring his body. And when they saw that he had started eating food, as you will see in number 26 in Majjhima Nikaya, in Arya Pariyesana Sutta, as they saw, the five ascetics saw that he started eating food, having given up the self mortification practices, they abandoned him. But was he surprised by it? No. He it became part of his narrative. He was left alone, and they went on their ways, and they thought, because at the time this was the only teaching that was there, and at the time they thought self-modification was the only way out, and they supported him so much, but then they stopped providing for him. They stopped being around him. They felt embarrassed that he started eating food, and they even complained. So you know that when you try to do something good, the closest people to you will be your biggest critics. And the Buddha was not affected. Buddha to be was not affected by these discouraging remarks. They said, "You have started living lavishly. Now that you have seeked what you earlier abandoned, has you have now come to." Imagine how they encouraged him, like, abandon this food, abandon this food. This is good for you. By abandoning this food, you will be able to, you will understand the Dhamma. So they must have encouraged, those other ascetics have come back to this life having abandoned, and you are not going to return to this lavish life again. But as he started eating food to regain his body, physical strength, they abandoned him, and that is okay. You know, people will abandon you, and that is okay. When you practice Dhamma, if they abandon you and that you are no longer being invited to the parties or friendship gatherings, that is okay. You have yourself as your company. You create, you make extra time for meditation now. And his personal other practice is that he's understanding about pleasure and pain. And there is pleasure through meditation. And that pleasure is called joy, piti, and sukha. And in Dhammapada, the Buddha says, abandon lesser happiness for greater happiness. As I remember, it is jahe matta sukhang or chaje matta sukhang dhiro, sampassang vipulan sukhang. Dhiro is a wise person. He abandons lesser happiness for greater happiness. So for someone who's practicing jhanas, lesser happiness is hindrances, sensual pleasures, anger, and those things. And greater happiness is coming to the first jhana. And when you have come to the first jhana, you target the second jhana and go like that. And now the lesser happiness is the first jhana. And gradually you increase. So this is the lesson you learn from it. And also in the case of the ascetic Gautama, he remembered his childhood practice of coming to jhanas and experiencing jhanas as a child. So you can see that he came to the world with a very special purpose, right? And that way he was able to touch the jhanas and easily stay in meditation. So that is also a great lesson, to go back to the child of you that is in a pure state and reclaiming that purity and taking humble steps again every time you fail so that you discover the greatest of the greatest truth to the world, for the world. I believe all these are small lessons that we can learn from the Buddha.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that explanation. Yeah, hopefully this will also be very helpful to all of you. I think it is also time for us to wind up the Dhamma talk. And I think before going to further questions, I think I'll take only one. We have maybe if you can, this is not really directly related to the sutta, but I think it's if you can also explain a little bit about this. What is the difference between Sammuti Satya and Paramatta Satya?
Well, I think Sammuti is conventional truth, Okay, Paramatta is absolute truth. And if you need an Abhidhammic answer, you will need to ask an Abhidhammic teacher from it. But in basic understanding, we can use the phrase I, for example, like I like this, I don't like this, kind of that I, not the physical I. So we use that conventionally, knowing that there is no self in the absolute truth. Okay, we use I conventionally for the convenience of communication, right? But in real absolute understanding of the Dhamma, based on suttas like Saccaka Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 148, you know that there is no such a thing as a self. Also, you can refer to Anatta Lakkana Sutta, non-self characteristics sutta, where the non-self teaching is absolutely explained. And also physical body, for example, you can take it apart and see it in terms of four elements. That is the absolute truth. In terms of 32 aspects of the body, that is absolute truth. And but then we use it as my body. This is my body. Uh, we don't use the language that the four elements, called so and so. So in a world of where Dhamma exists, we need to be normal people. We don't need to be using absolute truth to communicate. This will add inconvenience to the world and it will show you as a mad person. That is the wrong way to use the tools of Dhamma. Just be normal, be presentable, be nice, and be able to uh, be flexible, be humble too. In the Dhammic world, that you use the conventional language to communicate, which is what the Buddha did. Of course, he revealed the absolute truth in terms of dependent origination and Sabba Chitta Sadharana Chittas, the minds that are common to all the Chittas, and all these were explained by him. Uh, uh, but again, he encouraged people to use the conventional language, sammuti. Sammuti is what is agreed upon by the world. I hope that that is enough for that question.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you, Bhante Sankicha, Sudarshani, Vijay Bandara, Nishani, Kaushalya, Priyangi, Vijay and all the other people who joined today, and also posting some questions. And hopefully, this was very helpful to all of you. If you like it, you can also share with your friends. And once again, thank you very much, Bhante Kusala, for conducting this Dhamma sermon. I'm sure this was really helpful, and this can also encourage and inspire many people to practice more meditation. And so we today we come together uh, to celebrate not just a number, but the collective wisdom and compassion that we have nurtured through our shared journey. As we reflect on the past talks and look forward to the future, uh, let us remember the essence of the Buddha's teachings to cultivate a mind that is clear, a heart that is compassionate, and a life that is guided by wisdom. With that, we conclude all the blessings and all the greetings to our wonderful, venerable Maha, who gave this Dhamma talk on Mahā Saccaka Sutta, Venerable Dr. Derangala Kusala. Thank you once again for your precious time, and I wish, on behalf of the Dhamma USA community, wish you all the very best. Many blessings from the Noble Tripper Gem. May you always be well, happy, healthy, and may you be able to continue your journey and hopefully to accomplish your spiritual goal as soon as possible. And also, thank you everyone who joined us, and thank you everyone who support us. And looking forward to meeting you all with another Dhamma session like this. Until then, from Dhamma USA, we are signing off. May you all be well, happy, healthy. Sukhi Digayuko Bhava. Sadhu, sadhu.
I would invite Bhante Sankicha for for the next one, if possible.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. I would like actually to invite Bhante Sankicha to contact me if possible so that we can.
I will share contacts here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you and see you again next week.